is.
Everywhere, yeah, absolutely everywhere, along the roadside, everywhere.
Is it recording?
And, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it says
normally it
record.
tells me it is.
Yeah, it's up in that corner, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, welcome everyone. I guess everyone can hear okay?
Yep.
Yep, good. Okay, we'll start off with our land acknowledgement statement that the Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority respectfully acknowledges that the lands on which we gather is situated with the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas and Chippewas of the Anishinaabe, known today as the Williams Treaties First Nations. Our work on these lands acknowledges their resilience and their long contributions to the area. We are thankful for the opportunity to live, learn, and share with mutual respect and appreciation. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest, anyone? I don't see anyone, so there being none. We have the minutes of the last meeting, which is the May 18th meeting. They were attached. Can I have a mover to?
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
Randy will move, seconder. Tracy? Anything from those minutes, anyone? All in favor? That's carried. Can I move her to adopt today's agenda, please? Miriam, seconder. Vicky? I see Joan there with her hand. Do you have something to add? Oh, you're just seconding, Joan? Okay,
I was seconding it, but I'm not in person, so I'm over here.
Oh, I don't hear. She's trying to speak, but I don't hear her.
Ah,
Joan, we can't hear you. Are you speaking? No, she's muted now.
No, you didn't have, did you have anything, Joan, or not?
no.
I
Can
could
you
hear her.
that? I can
Good.
hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Business arising from those minutes, I don't believe there was anything. No, okay. Presentations, well, first up is our source water protection verbal update. And Jessica, you're going to do that, yes? Okay, you'll have to, you may, does she need to stand
Jessica, do you want to come over? You, yeah.
in that chair? Yeah, you'll be seen there.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. It's the room. It's
You just
the
gotta
room.
speak loud.
Okay, I'm gonna try. Through you, Mr. Chair, it's just a very quick update about the section 36 updates, the policy updates that are done, every 5 years. And I wanted to let you know that we did have our municipal working group meeting where the municipalities were informed about the updates. Pam walked us through the changes. And there was a pre-consultation phase where comments could be made and sent to us. We have received none. At this time, there is no action required. There will be a source protection committee meeting in June 26th. And this is when it will be decided when the public consultation phase will begin. And that will be when everyone can send in comments. And that will last for 35 days. And it's anticipated to last from mid-July to mid-August. And that's all I wanted to let you know.
Okay, any questions for Jessica? Is everyone able to hear Jessica okay? Yeah. Any questions? Anyone? Miriam?
Yes, thank you. Just as a matter of protocol, when the public consultation is decided, do you send a notice or some sort of indicator to municipalities so that, for example, we could have our communications person send that out as part of a newsletter, et cetera?
So you, Mr. Chair, so there is a procedure and everybody will have a contact list and everybody will be contacted who needs to be contacted.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else with any questions? Seeing none, can I have a motion just to receive for information? Miriam, seconder. Joan, all in favor? That's carried.
Thank you.
And next up, we have a Clean Water Healthy Land Stewardship Program for 2023. Pam, I think you're going to speak on this one.
Yeah, thank you,
Welcome, Pam.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Pam, we can't hear you.
Yeah, you can't hear any of us. You guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
So we can't hear anybody on screen, right? Well, Tracy, can you hear us?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yes,
Can hear you.
It
Can
was
you
a
hear me?
Zoom Update.
can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear you.
um,
I can
You know
hear
what,
you.
why don't we have Ken do his and I will get IT over here and then to help.
Okay, so we're gonna change our agenda a little bit. We're going to go to our natural hazards presentation series, part 4. So we can continue on.
Make this call.
And I believe Ken's gonna do that for us, so.
It's funny how often you have to change that.
Are you able to put them back on, Ken? So we can.
Yes. I was just wondering, maybe a good thing that Jeff is coming over. It's been a while since I did a share screen here. On Zoom. Oh, there it is.
Make sure they can see and hear you, Ken.
Can you find your presentation, Ken?
Yeah, he's just gonna try and.
Yeah.
Yeah, share screen.
Okay.
And then I'll check the mic out.
Right. Slideshow.
You got it.
There you go.
Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Can you see that on mine? Yep. Yep, you're good to go, Ken.
I'll check the mic after.
Hey. So, I'll run it over here.
Okay,
All right, this is going to continue our natural hazards presentation series that Corey and I have been doing. This is going to continue on what we spoke about in May on floodplains. In that discussion, we generally looked at floodplain mapping and what is determined to be the floodplain. I'm just going to flip through some of these slides quickly because I will have a little bit of information to go through. So this is in or adjacent to river or stream valleys. And just a quick reminder that this is the area, this is going to focus on the area that is considered to be the floodplain. And we're going to look at some development within these areas. So, and the floodplain in terms of a regulatory context, we look at the regulatory floodplain, the greater of the regional storm or Hurricane Hazel, as identified within a regulation, or the 100-year storm, or as identified in a special policy area, plus an allowance of up to 15 meters. This means that for the regulated area, a permit would be required from the Conservation Authority for development within this area. So again, the flooding hazard is a greater of Hurricane Hazel, the 100-year storm, or a flood which is greater than the above, or as identified within a special policy area. In terms of floodplain development, we generally do not support development within these areas, except in certain circumstances. Certainly no institutional emergency services or new hazardous material is permitted within the floodplain. We would require, if there's opportunity or if there is lands outside of the floodplain, we would direct that development to be located outside of the floodplain or in the area of least amount of risk. We have specific criteria for development within the floodplain. There's safe access that may need to be addressed, the ability for people to drive in and drive out, or emergency services to access that property or development in the event of a regional storm or a regulatory storm. And there are specific policy and technical requirements that must be addressed if developing within the floodplain. In terms of when we look at applications, we'll look at a permit application. We'll also look at Planning Act applications when those are circulated to us. And one of the things that's identified within the Planning Act is that there's a development and site alteration shall not be permitted within. And it says the floodway, regardless of the area of inundation, contains high points of land not subject to flooding. In general, that means that no new property lines, no new lot creation can be supported that's going to cross, bisect, or fragment the floodplain. All new lots to be created must be located entirely outside of the floodplain. We often work with developers earlier on in the process to identify where those where the floodplain limits are, and all lots to be created are going to be outside of those that floodplain area. We may support some applications such as minor variances for some existing development in the floodplain. But later on within GRCA's permitting process, we may ask for the detailed criteria to satisfy the Conservation Authority. When we're looking at lot creation, for instance, we will require a survey to identify the exact boundaries of that floodplain. And you can see here, the surveyor has identified the floodplain, and the lot to be created, or part 1, is entirely outside of that floodplain area. When it comes down to specific development, we will require that survey showing us where exactly the floodplain is. Here in the survey shows in the upper right hand area an elevation, which is the regulatory floodplain. This will help establish the building envelope. It will determine the exact depth of flooding on the property. Like the last slide, it determines new lot lines or limits. It assists the engineer consultant with designing floodproofing if the structure or development is going to be within the floodplain. It determines if changes to the grade are going to be proposed, and ensures a proponent is not going to be grading into the floodplain. Sometimes they'll see a development that's going to be outside of the floodplain, but the landowner wants that walkout basement, and they effectively build them or put themselves into the floodplain as a result. It is necessary to show elevations of openings, doors, windows, vents, etc., and everything to be outside of that floodplain if possible. Now, there's different types of flood proofing for development within the floodplain. If the Conservation Authority, the GRCA is able to support the development based on our policies, there's wet and dry flood proofing. When it comes down to habitable structures, including any seasonal cottages, GRCA does require dry, passive flood proofing. Passive flood proofing means no openings, regardless of the ability for them to be sealed. For instance, doors or windows, there would be no doors or windows allowed within the floodplain itself. They all have to be above that floodplain. I'll get into detail with dry flood proofing shortly. For non-habitable structures, sheds, barns, garages, workshops, GRCA does recommend dry flood proofing where feasible, but wet flood proofing at a minimum. And one of the difficulties that we see is the conversion of a non-habitable structure into a habitable structure. The proponent would need to demonstrate the structure can be dry flood proofed. Often that's a very difficult hurdle because there's a significant difference between wet and dry flood proofing.
Okay,
Specifically, dry flood proofing, GRCA staff refer to the M&R technical guide. Oh.
We can't
We
get
can't hear, you
Okay.
can't ask this question because there's no mic, so you will have
I-
to ask questions at the end.
I can't see the
Okay.
presentation.
Sorry.
Am I the
Yeah.
only one?
Standard wall construction provides
No, we can't see or hear
inferior
anything.
defense against
Well,
flooding, so a
Okay,
greater
so we're just
standard
gonna
of.
listen to it.
Are they hearing? Are you
They,
hearing?
they can hear us, can't they?
I
Oh,
can
that's what
hear,
I'm
but I
just gonna
can't
check this.
see.
Yes, Joan is saying yes. We'll get the mics. I've got Jeff here. I just didn't check the setting, but I will check that.
Did you hear that? Okay, that Linda said that we're gonna have the sound up
I-
and going here in a few minutes, once Ken's done his
I can't
presentation.
see
We'll
it.
be able to answer your question.
No, Chair, we
Sorry.
can hear Ken, but the slides are not scrolling.
Okay,
The slides are not scrolling.
So we require dry flood proofing for all habitable structures within one zone floodplains. The survey is required to confirm grades and openings. Often wall and basement reinforcement is required, for instance, extra concrete. Thicker walls reinforced with rebar will be what we see. All openings, windows, doors, vents to be 0.3 meters above the floodplain. And generally no basement should be within the floodplain. This design must be completed by a professional engineer and final drawing stamped by a professional engineer. And that would be in our permits when we do issue them. And just as a note, dry floodproofing can be expensive. One thing we often think about the floodplain is just as water that's running above the surface, but one of the big considerations we have are hydrostatic pressures. So one of the most important, they're the most important consideration in a floodproofing design. In a floodplain scenario, the ground will become saturated, and there's going to be additional ground pressures acting laterally. Or from an uplift vertical or down or from an uplift. And these pressures can cause the structure to heave, rupture, float, or crack. So these considerations have to go into the floodproofing design. With wet floodproofing, again, these are non-habitable structures. Is required to some extent for all structures within the floodplain. It allows water to enter, move within, and exit a structure to prevent hydrostatic pressure. So the water is going to get into these structures. We look for openings upstream and downstream, and that's where Corey's model, the 2D model, really helps us. It shows which way the water is flowing, so we know which way the openings would need to go in a wet floodproof structure. Water gets in, gets out, a door on one side, a door on the other. It may require anchoring to the ground to ensure that structure doesn't move. And we may require survey information and engineering, depending on the project. We try not to ask for it, especially if somebody's building a barn, if they can move it to an area of least amount of risk. The other area identified is a special policy area. Now, these are areas that are considered an exceptional circumstance. These areas have been approved by the Minister of Natural Resources and Forestry and Municipal Affairs and Housing. Currently, we have two, one in Port Hope and one in Cobourg. These are located within the official plan. We also have them in our policy document. So Cobourg and Port Hope have SPAs within their downtown. Now, these areas are subject to a lesser standard of floodplain development than one zone floodplains, all other areas. Given this, GRCA has strict adherence to the SPA that is in effect, meaning that we can't deviate from the policies within the SPA. Another area that we'll deal with, and probably the most notable area of a spill is in Cobourg, and with a Cobourg Creek. And this is the area over which there may be an undersized culvert forcing water to move in another area. It doesn't act necessarily the same way as a floodplain, but the water would spill over land. So we're not necessarily dealing with the hydrostatic pressures or impacts to other properties, but we do need to, usually the big concern here is people building basement apartments or adding to their basements that would be inundated in the event of a regulatory storm. Other floodplain considerations in terms of development, a lot of times people ask about berms or walls to divert the floodplain. These aren't generally supported by GRCA staff as they could displace water elsewhere and onto other properties. Development in floodplains may cause floodplain displacement. So a larger scale building going in that's going to be dry floodproof, meaning that the water is going to be getting in, may push water onto another property. And we have to be able to say to the neighboring properties that that's not going to have an impact. And it may be required, the proponent may be required to demonstrate through an engineering study that there will be no measurable impacts to the floodplain as a result of the proposed development. Another item that comes up frequently is cut and fill, and that may be considered in certain circumstances where there is available land, often in terms of a subdivision, filling in and this would be filling in the floodplain of one area and cutting elsewhere to allow for that lost storage. And this would always be undertaken through a detailed engineering analysis. And that's all I have from from my perspective. So happy for any questions.
We're just gonna wait on the questions, Ken, to
Okay.
get this. Hopefully get everybody to come through and be able to ask the question, go to their own time.
Speakers, so those are on blue, those are red. So are they these ones? Those are red, that's what I noticed when I looked. Because. Are they blue now? So which one,
Working now?
which one are they? Same system? I switched them. Can somebody speak?
Hello,
Oh, pardon?
it's me, Pam. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
okay, Marilyn. So
Joan,
let's,
do you want to try?
Yeah,
He's got
can
it
you
to
hear
voice.
me?
yeah, we can.
Can you,
We just need
I
some. vote.
wanted to say that the presentation we could not see.
Oh, you can't see it?
Oh,
That's why we were waving and everything, not to ask a question, but we listened to it, but we had no idea what you're talking about.
why would the share screen not work?
So we can see your screen, but it's not flipping slides. So we're still, unless Joanne, you're saying something different. All we see is the title page. It never changed.
Okay, well, you heard it.
I heard it.
Yep.
You want to redo it, Ken? quickly?
I think it's available afterwards, isn't it, on the section?
Yes, we put them online after, it'll be on, I'll make sure it goes on the recording. And if it doesn't, we'll have to record it separately, but,
We could get Ken to maybe do a recording separately.
yeah, I can have it. I mean, he doesn't need to record it, you can read it, basically what he read the slides.
It might be helpful if we have a way of reaching the chair or reaching you, Linda, to let you know. We're
Sure,
having
no,
problems here.
yeah, I didn't realize you couldn't see it, I don't know why, we've never had that happen before. So, we'll look into that, but thank you, sorry, again. Okay, so stop sharing.
Okay, we can go to questions. I know it's a little unfair for those that didn't get to see it, but you wish us to, do you want to continue on, or how do you want to handle this? Do you, I guess those online.
Oh, Joan? Sorry.
I did have a question, and although the Ganaraska isn't in that big of an area in Omakoldaman, how do you, if somebody's coming for a severance on a road that has 10 houses that could be in the floodplain, and they're wanting a severance, and it makes sense that they get a severance, would the Ganaraska then comply with that, or would you still say we don't agree with this severance because it's in the floodplain?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The Conservation Authority is, we have to speak to section 3.1 of the provincial policy statement, and unless there are any special circumstances, such as being within a special policy area, then in general, the Conservation Authority doesn't support the creation of a new buildable lot within that hazard. We would take a look at it, if it is if they are going to be creating a new lot within the floodplain, there may be certain circumstances that may arise. I mean, but if it is for the purpose of creating a new buildable lot within the floodplain, that would be a concern. If the purpose is for the preservation of certain lands, or there may be certain other circumstances, but we'd have to evaluate that at the time of the submission. It would be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Anyone else with any question? Miriam, I see you have.
A question, you did show a slide with regards to an area in Coburg, and you referred to a culvert. And that raised in my mind a question about dealing with the railways, because often our communities and watersheds are north of the railway. Do you have a general state of, like, how is it to deal with the railways? When it comes to that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, we have to deal with the existing situation that we have before us. The expectation that a railway is going to enlarge the culvert to allow for the passage of flow up to the regional, it's usually unlikely. I have been involved in one circumstance in my career where they did, where a culvert was enlarged, but I know it was a long process. But usually we're dealing with the circumstances as given to us, and if there is going to be an undersized culvert, then there would be that backwater effect. And we do have to regulate to that regional storm standard, or which usually is a regional, the Hurricane Hazel storm standard, and the resulting floodplain.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else with any questions? I guess I'm going to go back to those that are online. Are you satisfied with this presentation? That I know you weren't able to see it, but are you satisfied in going forward with how it was presented today? And
We can try and bring it up again. We can just quickly go through the slides. So
Willie, Margaret, Bruce, and Joan, what's your thoughts on this? I mean,
Margaret is.
we'll go. Margaret, you're muted, and
I heard every word Ken said, and I had no trouble understanding the presentation without the slides being forwarded.
okay, and Willie.
I could hear it fine, Mark, so I'm happy with it. Too bad we couldn't see it, but we could hear what he was saying, and understandable.
And Willie and Joan, are you satisfied with today?
Yeah, you said the slides would be part and parcel of the minutes.
Yeah, they'll be on the video. They should be, and we normally put the slides as well on the minutes on the public side. We try and download them. So or upload them. I don't know what we do, but it's up or down. But they will be part of it, and they should be part of the video. But if they're not, we'll attach them separately.
And make sure they're
But
on.
they will be there.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
and you're good, Joan? Yeah.
I'll answer that question after I've seen the two together.
Okay. Okay, thank you then. Can I have a
Thank you.
motion just to receive this presentation for information then, please? Marion, you'll move. Seconded by Adam, all in favor? That's carried. And next up, we'll go back to our Clean Water Healthy Land Stewardship Program, and Pam, you're going to do that presentation. And we're trying to make sure everyone gets to see it this time.
Yeah, so I'll just, thank you, Mr. Chair. So first off, can everybody hear me okay?
We can hear.
Both online and
Yes,
in the room,
online.
okay? Perfect.
Everybody
And
see this? Everybody see it okay? Joan, can you see this?
Well, when I raise my hand, that's because I can't see the presentation, not that I want to ask a question. Right
Yeah.
now, it seems to be running smoothly.
Okay,
I'll
good.
just kind of
Thank you.
flip through a couple of my first slides, and if you see me flipping, then that's good. Okay. All right, somebody just yell or wave your hand if you need me to do something. But good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chair, my presentation this afternoon is going to be on an update of the Clean Water Healthy Land Stewardship Program for the first half of 2023. Hard to believe it's already into June. So it's an understatement to say it's been a busy spring.
Oh, Joan,
yes,
Joan,
Joan,
you got something, Joan?
Where I am, Pam, you are breaking up, so I don't know if anybody else is having that problem or not.
We're getting a little bit of that here, just a little backflow, I think.
Okay.
You'll just have to
There you go,
continue
you're
on.
good there.
Okay, I will. There's not much I can do. I hear a bit of feedback on my end, but we'll just keep going. If it gets really bad, we can try something different.
Well, you're fine, Pam. I can hear you fine.
Okay. Well, we'll keep going. So it's been a busy spring through all of our different stewardship programs that we offer at the authority. One of our biggest selections is through our tree offerings here at the authority and how we can engage residents in tree planting. We do this through offering an over-the-counter tree and shrub seedling sale, where people can buy a minimum of 25 of one species, increments of 25, and take them home, plant them themselves. We have our full service tree planting program where we engage with contractors in the local nursery to plant trees on people's properties, starting at a minimum of 500 items. And then we have our Trees for Rural Roads program that we deliver in partnership with Clarington, Port Hope, and Hamilton. So with our over-the-counter tree seedling program, this year we sold a little over 11,000 trees to over 72 landowners, both within our jurisdiction and outside. And you can kind of see some of the distribution of the trees between the different municipalities. For our full service tree planting program, so we develop a planting plan for the landowner with consultation with them. And then we engage in a contractor, in this case, it's Brinkman Reforestation, and we get our trees at the local nursery, Pine Needle Farms. So in 2023, we planted a little over 10,000 trees on 4 private properties. This one here is a picture of one. And we also did refilling at 2 properties that we planted back in 2021. So altogether, just over 13,000 trees were planted. We were lucky this year where the landowners were able to get the bulk of their funding through the 50 million tree plant program, which we are a planting delivery agent through Forest Ontario. And also this year we partnered with Trees for Life, used to be Highway of Heroes, and received money through the federal 2 billion tree plant program. So using these 2 programs, we were able to support the landowners' financial side of things, rather than using our Clean Water Healthy Land financial assistance program. The other thing that we did this year, continue to do, was collaborate under the Durham Trees program. This is a collaborative venture between the 5 conservation authorities that exist within Durham region to support engagement with Durham residents and eventually planting trees on their property. So we continue to collaborate under that, plus Ganaraska is the lead for the project management side of things. And then Trees for Rural Roads program. So this program is done in partnership with the municipality of Clarington, municipality of Port Hope, and Township of Hamilton, where we provide trees for free for people to plant along a municipal road, but on their private property side of the fence. And we offer different hardwood and softwood species. So for Clarington, we do this in conjunction with Central Lake Ontario. So almost 500 trees were distributed to 30 landowners, with 354 trees going to 17 landowners within our jurisdiction. For Port Hope, it was 322 trees were provided to 17 landowners within the municipality. And in Hamilton Township, 75 trees to 75 landowners, or 7 landowners in the township. So in 2023, this spring, a total of a little over 25,000 trees went out within our jurisdiction or just beyond to be planted, which is equivalent to about 36 acres of trees. And again, all the tree planting helps support implementation of watershed plans, natural heritage strategies, and supports climate mitigation and adaptation. So we move over to Clean Water Healthy Land and the funding side. Again, the authority offers, in partnership with our member municipalities, the ability for landowners to engage from an education perspective, but also financial supporting. So far, 9 projects have been approved for a total allocation of around $9,700. And we see kind of the distribution of projects per municipality. We fund reforestation, agricultural best management practices such as GPS units, no-till drills or planters, livestock fencing, field erosion control. In Hamilton Township, we're also doing a riparian planting area to support some bank erosion that is occurring on Gages Creek. And in Port Hope, we also have done well upgrades so far. Town of Cobourg also participates through this program through Lakefront Utilities, a partnership we have with them. But those projects are a little more site specific and tend to be a bit more community oriented rather than kind of these rural landowner engaging projects. The Clean Water Healthy Land has been happening since 2007. So as of the end of 2022, 543 projects have been funded across our jurisdiction. The municipalities, which are the four main participating municipalities, has funded 688,000 plus funds towards these projects, a landowner investment of over 2.2 million. Of course, we leverage funds wherever we can from other sources, with a monetary investment of over 3.4 million going into the watershed. And then finally, kind of a specific project we're involved in between 2022 and 2023 is a grant that we join in partnership with the Association for Canadian Education Resources, or known as ACER, and Sustainable Coburg. So we jointly applied to the Great Lakes Local Action Fund to plant over 900 trees and shrubs in riparian areas. And again, this is happening since the fall of 2022 into the fall of 2023. So we'll be having a total of 5 volunteer events. So far, 3 have been held between the fall and the spring, engaging around 48 volunteers. And so far, we've planted at Sylvan Glen Conservation Area and on the Ganaraska River, and at Legion Fields, and a site just off of a walking trail south of Legion Fields on Brook Creek in the town of Coburg. So again, I always like to take this opportunity to thank our board members and our member municipalities for all the support that you give to the stewardship program. We work closely with many of the different municipal departments to ensure that the projects are appropriate for the area, and that we are able to support municipal projects on municipal lands through, especially through tree planting, as much as possible. So thank you again for your continued support. That's everything. You guys are muted over there. Sorry, Mr. Chair. There you go.
Oh, sorry. I was thanking you, Pam, for all the hard work you do and working with the landowners and the municipalities involved. So great job that you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions for Pam? Anyone with any questions? Joan, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. That was very informative. Thank you, Pam. The trees, are they still available, or if we've missed the spring tree buy, are you going to be having them in the fall?
Sure, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So everything pretty much done for this season. For the majority of our programs, we need to know by end of March at the latest. That's kind of when our last program closes for taking orders. And by now, all the bare root stock will be back in the ground at the nursery. We do the volunteer events in the fall, not distribution programs. The species availability and the window of opportunity to get them out of the ground and replant is very small. So for better success, we always keep to the spring. But we open all of our programs, usually if it's not before Christmas, it's in January. Everything is open again to start receiving orders for that April, May timeline.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Further questions? Randy, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Please don't take this as a criticism. I found it very informative and certainly very good news. I would just ask, and this generally goes to all presentations, when you're using acronyms, at least once, put out really what it all means, so that, you know, all you have to do it is once, and then you can use it from then on. You're fine with ACER, ACER, but there was 2 or 3 other ones in the presentations, and it would just be helpful, I think, for all of us. And thanks so much.
Yes, not a criticism without either you too, Mr. Chair. We use a lot of acronyms. I can appreciate it. And I think sometimes we don't even know we do it. It's a second language.
Is there one you need to know?
No, it's okay now. I got to figure it out. Thank you.
Okay. Miriam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question. How would one find out more information about follow-up? Like, because if we have a really, really dry growing season, is there a maintenance or stewardship, ongoing stewardship after the planting? Like, how would a project participant find out what the care is? Because I think I'll leave it at that. That Pam might give me some feedback.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. So depending on the program, so for our DIY, our do-it-yourself packages like the over-the-counter program or Trees for Rural Roads, we provide a lot of information so that person who's participating knows what to do on their own after the fact. And depending on the season, sometimes we'll send out reminders if, coming up to, it's fall and here's things you should be doing. We also will provide some products like mulch mats or tree guards for some of the programs so that they can continue with the maintenance. On our full service tree plant program, around Thanksgiving, kind of mid-October, staff go back out and do a tree survival assessment in the first year after we planted. So where we planted this spring, we'll be going back in the fall to do a survival assessment in year 2 of growth and in year 5 to see how the trees are doing. And if survival falls below 60% of the total, then that landowner or the client has the ability to apply for additional grants to have the refill funding or refill planting done. So it depends on the program, but we do want to support our clients and we want to know how well our products are doing out in the field, especially. And so we have different ways that we go about doing that.
Okay, anyone else with further question? Vicky, yes?
Thank you. So through the chair, it's more of a feedback than a question, but in Rural for Hope, the common theme lately has been to cut trees on the roadside, and there is a misunderstanding between managed trees through the Trees for Rural Roads program as opposed to overgrowth in the community. So this past spring, we had some pushback specifically about this program and the misunderstanding between the two types of scenarios. So just some feedback that there could be opportunity between yourselves and the municipality to put some more education around that and differentiate between the two, because I do think it's a great program. But it's a growing theme that's happening right now is to cut every tree along the roadside. So.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, can I have a motion to receive the report for information purposes? Joan, seconder Adam, all in favor? Carried. Okay, next we have the applications under the Ontario Regulation 168-06. Schedule is attached. Can I have a motion to receive for information purposes, please? Randy?
So moved.
Randy will move. Seconder, please. Seconder, Willie. All in favor? Carried. Oh, is there a question, Willie? Do you have a question? No?
Oh, no.
Okay. Next up, we have committee reports, the Ganaraska Region Recreational Users Committee. And the minutes were attached. I believe Ed's here if we have any questions. Can I have a mover to receive for information? Vicky, seconder Bruce. And any comments or questions? I have a question. Does anyone else have any comments or questions before I go to mine? Miriam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did reach out to a horseback rider. I mentioned this to some Linda. And I recommended that the rider reach out to the Recreational Users Committee because there is a representative there. And I'm hoping that if they haven't already, that they have reached out just to address some items, like in particular was the mounting block that they were asking about. So it's more of an informational item as opposed, unless there is some feedback, whether the users group has been able to address that.
Okay, your question was my question, so that's good. And do you have any comment on it? Was it brought forward at the meeting at all, dealing with those blocks?
So good afternoon, everyone. So the GRCA is currently working on a trail maintenance agreement with the Ontario Trail Riders Association. So that is part of that agreement. So there is discussions revolving around infrastructure and horse trailer access and horse access into the central forest. So that will be part of those discussions.
Good. Good. Thank you, Ed. Anyone else with any other questions on recreational committee? Oh, and we moved in seconds. It was received. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm sure we did. Yeah. Other business, conservation land strategy, and we have staff report attached. That's Pam again. Yeah, Pam,
So,
do you have anything to add to your report or not? Just answer questions if needed.
Yeah, no, Mr. Chair, the staff report's kind of self-explanatory, but I'm happy to entertain questions.
Anyone with any questions? There being none, can I have a motion to approve well, I think it just received the report as presented. Mover, please. Jones, seconder Adam, all in favor? That's carried. Question period, do we have anyone from the public?
you have nobody from the,
No one from the public?
no questions received.
Okay, great, we have no one camera, so I guess we just need a motion to adjourn, please. Adam, you'll move, and Bruce, you'll second. Well, enjoy your summer, everyone, and we'll see you back in September.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Have a good summer.
Bye.
Bye-bye. No, not if we have to call something, but it's not you. I normally don't. Great. We get 2 questions.